A man tried to overpower Jacob on Christmas Eve while he was driving home. Another unknown man sat alone at the last stair leading down to the basement of Julia's home on Christmas night. Strange things happen that have no satisfactory explanations. Stay with us as we dive deeper into the haunting, scary, true Christmas horror stories that have happened to various people. Don't miss out on the one with a strange, creepy person named Tom. I, Julia, am 34 and live with my only son. He was just 4 years old when this true horror incident happened, and it still gives me the shivers. It was Christmas Eve, and I had been working all day. I was an only mother, and my son and I used to be at home alone. After cleaning the house and decorating it for the whole day, I set up the presents when I felt someone walking towards the basement. It was a bit late, but I knew my son was still awake. I quickly wrapped up my chores, looked around, turned off the lights and gas, and walked out of the room. The whole day, my son had been vigorous about Christmas. Until now, he was wide awake and thinking about the next day. I smiled at his innocence as I walked towards the basement door. My son was standing there looking down silently. I didn't know why he would be standing there, but as I saw him go there, I just followed him. I was so tired that I did not even bother to ask what he was up to, and just dragged him away from the door. He had been roaming the house energetically the whole day, so this little incident didn't bother me that much. Even though on his way, he once tried to say, "Santa was sitting there." I just shushed him and took him to his room. It was late already, and he should have been asleep by then. I tucked him in his bed and said goodnight, and walked towards my room. The house was dark, and the floor creaked, but I cared about nothing but getting inside my comfy bed. Just as I had slipped inside the covers and closed my eyes, I felt someone walk towards the basement again. I sighed, a little frustrated this time, and got out of the bed with a groan. How difficult it was to control that guy. I knew my son had come out of the bed again, and why would he go towards the basement? I had no clue. Anyway, I got up and walked towards the basement door, where he was standing silently. It was as if he was deciding whether to walk down or not. Before he could decide, I grabbed his arm and he looked up at me. His eyes showed no fear, but I saw a spark of curiosity. He just said Santa in a low voice and pointed towards the basement stairs. I raised an eyebrow at him and looked where he pointed. The stairs were dark and nothing was visible. However, I could still make out an eerie shadow on the last step of the flight of stairs. Looking at it made my heart skip a bit and my blood ran cold. Instinctively, I put a hand on my son's mouth so that my son wouldn't scream or shout anything. I dragged my son quickly towards the house's entrance door and rushed to get out of it as soon as possible. Just as I put my hand on the door, I remembered that these door hinges always creaked when opened. I groaned slightly before slowly turning the handle anyway and opening the door with a loud creak. Just then, I heard loud footsteps from the basement. I opened the entrance door and practically threw my son out into a safe zone. I myself rushed out and grabbed my son's wrist before running towards the neighbor's house. I knocked on the door, but no one answered. I banged 3 times, but still none. Perhaps they were asleep. I kept banging and even started shouting until someone opened the door on the 30th bang. I thanked them quickly and got inside. My eyes were wide awake and no signs of being tired. I told them everything quickly, and they called the police. The police came in a few minutes and we waited until then. The police searched my house thoroughly but couldn't find the strange man. That day, I lied to my son and told him that it was actually Santa. But as he grew older, he started to understand that the man he saw was someone who definitely wasn't Santa. I am Simpsons, a banker with a good reputation in society. One scary incident in my life made me very sensitive and cautious. Last Christmas, my ex-girlfriend and I planned to meet her family who lived far from our place. We decided to spend the weekend with them, which proved to be the stupidest decision of my life. Their home was in the midst of thick vegetation, and the neighborhood was about a mile away. On a small hill, the place was like a mini palace with a white dome and calmness, even in the daytime. The family was not that big. It consisted of only her brother and her parents. Leanna was excited to see them, but our welcome was not normal at all. Although Leanna's father shook my hand warmly and patted my back, and her mother gave me a broad smile, I still felt some coldness in their eyes. Her brother Jim wasn't there at that time. The place was no doubt more beautiful from the inside than the outside. It was nicely decorated according to the Christmas event. The dinner was superb. And then Jim returned from his office and met me gently. He was handsome, in his early 30s, but his grip on my hand was stiff and his eyes were stern. We started to watch a Christmas movie, and I observed a strange stare from his brother. When I looked back at him, he posed as if he was busy watching the film. Once we made eye contact, which made me quite uncomfortable. Finally, we went to the amazingly luxurious guest room that was made ready for me and Leanna. I had been waiting for the chance to get into the warm bed. I put on my nightgown and Leanna went to the washroom. However, just as I was about to get comfortable, I heard the notification tone on Leanna's phone and unintentionally read her mom's message. She was asking if her boyfriend was satisfied and had no suspicion about them. I was stunned to read the message. In the meantime, another message came, but I couldn't read it as the phone asked for the password. It made me uneasy. I was in a dilemma about whether to discuss it with Liana. Before making any decision, Liana returned. She wasn't in the mood to have a chat anymore, so she wished me goodnight and slept. I kept waking the whole night, expecting something unusual, which happened around 2 a.m. My instincts had not lied. Liana left the bed and came to my side to see if I was sleeping soundly. I pretended to snore. She sneaked out of the room and I got up. I waited till I heard her going downstairs. I was so frightened of the upcoming events that I rushed back, gathered my belongings, and packed the bag. As I carried the bag and returned to leave, I saw Liana's father sitting on the room chair. Unintentionally, I started shrieking, and then I ran towards my car. I felt them run after me, but I got in the car and drove it at full speed. I didn't stop, except at the gas stations. When I came to my senses, I found myself in my room. I checked my phone, where Liana texted me about that nonsensical action of leaving her house. I didn't inquire about their mysterious attitude and blocked her number forever. If you are enjoying these scary Christmas stories, then don't hesitate to smash that like and subscribe button. My name is Raphael, and what I will tell you about is the incident that happened 15 years ago when I was just a 7-year-old boy. It was Christmas Eve, but I wasn't excited because I'm a Jew. My father is a doctor by profession, and usually he gets a call from the hospital on Christmas nights. Unfortunately, my mother is an alcoholic, and she satisfies her needs in the evening and then remains asleep the whole night. On that particular day, Dad was out for his duty, and Mom was too drunk to think anything sanely. My younger sister, who was only 4 then, was watching our favorite movie on the television when we heard a knock on the door. We had a glass window from where I could see, and I found a person dressed as Santa Claus standing just outside the door. I was amazed to see such a person on our doorstep, as everybody around knew that we were Jewish. I asked him why he was there. To my astonishment, he said he was a real Santa and was up to send gifts to Jewish children, as they also had a right to happiness. He suddenly changed his tone and demanded to open the door, or he would break it. We were frightened, and my sister ran upstairs to wake Mom, but that was useless. I tried 911 to call the cops, but the woman there wasn't in the mood to listen. She thought I was playing a joke. I was terrified because he was continuously knocking. I could just follow an insane idea, and I did. I burned a bunch of candles, and then blew them out to produce a handsome amount of smoke near the fire alarm. It worked, and the sirens were set off. The fire department wasn't far away from my house, and soon I could hear the firefighters reaching nearby. To my amazement, Santa was still there, trying to explain to the firefighters that he had forgotten his keys in the hospital and was dressed up like that to surprise his children. He requested them to break the door so his family could be safe. I opened the door myself and told the whole story to the cops about how he was trying to enter the home and he wasn't my father. The cops seemed convinced. He arrested the man and called my father from the hospital. If I had opened the door for Santa, something wrong might have happened indeed. I am Jacob, 34 years old and in good health. I'm engaged with a law firm in New York City and usually return home around 6 in the evening. It was Christmas Eve 3 years back, and I was stuck in a pile of files. I was the one left alone in the office when my wife texted me that she and my daughter were going to the dinner held at my cousin's home. It took me another hour to finish the assigned tasks, and I was ready to leave. I got in my car and started my journey. It started snowing, and I drove even slower. An hour later, I was there. Luckily, the dinner was served, and they were about to start. We had dinner in a pleasant environment. My wife and daughter left earlier, but I wanted to stay with my cousin's family a little longer. I stayed there until 11:30. By the time I was leaving, the ground was covered with 2 feet of snow and it was hard to drive speedily. In the middle of the way home, I saw a car parked at the side of the road. Being kind-natured, I brought the car near to see whether someone was in trouble and if I could do something for him. I saw a man about 30 years old with good height and muscle. When I stopped the car, he knocked on the screen and demanded to get it down. He asked me if I had any skills to check and repair his car. I told him gently I didn't know much about cars, but he insisted on seeing his car. I had to get out of my car. He had opened the car trunk and asked me to check its engine. As I bowed down, he shuttered down the trunk, but immediately, I managed to get out of it and punched him in his face. He fell and I took advantage of the moment. I got in my car and moved it away from that place. I called 911 and told them about the location. I could see the red and blue lights of the police cars. My heart was pounding, but I kept my senses stable. It saved my life. Although driving on a snowy road was challenging, I reached home in 2 hours. I told my wife the whole story as it was the most horrific incident of my life. My girlfriend and I planned to spend Christmas night in an Airbnb located in the Pocono Mountains. This incident happened 2 years back when Sam was a 28-year-old man. Our place was located on top of a hill. I had rented it from a distant friend of mine named Mike. He was a nice guy and seemed helpful. We reached the place when the sun was about to set and it had started to snow. Thinking about it, I stepped inside the basement. The rest of the thoughts vanished from my mind when I stepped in there. The basement looked separate from the whole house as it was not furnished, and a strange smell came from that place. Just as I tried to figure it out, there was a knock on the door. I got there to answer it and found a weird man standing there. He said that he was Tom, Mike's brother, and he was there to help him out in any need. I thanked him, and he wished my girlfriend and me good holidays and then went away. His last phrase struck me as odd, as my girlfriend hadn't come to the door, but maybe Mike had told him about it. Anyway, I asked my girlfriend to prepare dinner while I went to check the water. Hot water was coming, but after just 10 seconds, it turned ice cold. This seemed weird. I called Mike and explained. I also told him about Tom, but he seemed surprised and said he didn't know about him. Just then, the door knocked, and the hair on the back of my neck stood. I didn't answer the door, but called the police instead. My girlfriend and I left the creepy place as soon as possible. These scary and creepy stories serve us a reminder to tread carefully wherever we go and prioritize our safety above everything. Although you can never guarantee that you can avoid sinister things in your life, one can hope for the best, can't he? What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked the video, then support us. And feel free to enjoy other scary videos on our channel too.